Okay. So again, welcome to this discussion for notes receivable part 1. I actually have two parts for PowerPoint presentation for notes receivable. We have it now as part 1. If time still allow us, I hope we can finish the entire part 1 of the PowerPoint presentation for notes receivable. So let's proceed with focus points. We have to discuss basic concepts of notes receivable. Then, after that, we can proceed with accounting for interest-bearing notes receivable, and we can have the sample problems. So let's start discussing the basic concepts for notes receivable. So notes receivable, we define notes receivable as financial asset that gives a company a contractual right to receive cash or another financial asset in the future when it reaches its maturity. So in addition to the definition for notes receivable, and in contrast with the previous receivable that we have discussed, which is the accounts receivable, notes receivable already includes the feature of maturity. In contrast with accounts receivable is coming from open contract. Other than the billing statement that we issue to customers, no other security that will prove for the receivable, for the existence of the receivable. But for notes receivable, we already have maturity. Okay? We already have maturity. So notes receivable is expected to have maturity period, which in contrast with accounts receivable, the maturity feature that is embedded with notes receivable concept will allow us to determine whether the receivable is current or non-current. Si accounts receivable kasi guys, since open contract siya with customers and no specific maturity date that is provided in the contract, kasi word of mouth nga lang, yun nga, we always consider accounts receivable as current, trade and current receivable. But for notes receivable, depende si notes receivable whether it is trade or non-trade. Basta, pag tingnan natin yung maturity, we can already determine if it is current or non-current, short-term or long-term notes receivable. So yan. The same with all other receivables. Notes receivable, it is a financial asset. Gives the company a contractual right to receive cash. By such definition, it is backed by the fact that notes receivable arises from transactions that involves the receipt of the promissory notes. So those transactions can either be coming from trading or non-trading activities. So for trading activities, we have sale of goods or services. Then for non-trading, we could either have sale of properties other than goods or services. Then we have lending of money. So non-trading yan. Okay. So notes receivable arises when we engage with transactions that involves the receipt of promissory note. Who among you here are familiar with promissory note? It is actually a negotiable document. Kindly raise hand kung nakakita na in person ng promissory note. Okay, so meron na palang familiar. Promissory note doesn't have a fixed format. So free format C, promissory note, what is provided lang in the negotiable instruments law, for promissory note, kailangan present yung kanyang important features. So later, I will show you a sample of promissory note. So those are the transactions that involves the receipt of promissory note, that could involve the receipt of promissory notes. It depends on the scenario, on that transactions. So here is an example of a promissory note. Yan, makita nyo the important features na nandyan should be, kailangan may amount, the place, the date, the signature, the name and address of the maker the promissory note, then commonly, commonly meron na ngayong portion for the notary public. Because being a negotiable instrument, being a document, a financial document, it needs to be sealed, notarized. So example, we have the amount 1 million placed in INTACC1 company, date January 1, 2019, which means that the promissory note was issued, or made or issued January 1 of 2019. So I, Mr. Alfon, make commitment to pay a FAR company the sum of 1 million. Repayment is to be made in the form of lump sum payment. When we say lump sum payment, one-time payment or isang bagsakan ng Tagalog. On 31st of December 2023, at the interest rate of 10% of 1 million. So merong interest rate na given. Interest will be based on the 1 million amount, which is payable, yung interest daw payable on the 31st of December of each year. Beginning 31st of December 2019 until the total amount of the debt is paid. So ibig sabihin, interest will be paid annually every December 31 until the total amount of 1 million will be paid in full. In witness thereof, I set my hand under the seal this 1st of January 2019 and I acknowledge receipt of a completed copy of this document. So signature of the maker, which is the CEO of INTACC1 company. Then we have the signature for the notary public. Okay, so those are the important features of a promissory note. Doesn't necessarily mean na meron siya ditong name. But for identification purposes, minsan linalagay na lang na promissory note to identify the document. So yan yung example natin ng promissory note. Again, no specific format. Although a company may make templates for their promissory note, but generally it depends on the issuing or issuing company or the maker company. So yan yung promissory note example natin. I made corrections pala on this one kasi sa morning I forgot to emphasize na dapat may maturity period. The maturity period here is stated in the second sentence. Actually, last sentence eh. Sabi dyan, repayment is to be made in the form of lump sum payment on the 31st of December 2023. So counting from 2019, 2020, 1, 2, 3, 5 years yung life ng promissory note natin. Okay? Yung na-receive natin na promissory note is good for 5 years. Yan. So determinable yung payment at determinable yung amount for the notes receivable or for the promissory note. So yan ha. Then for the characteristics of notes receivable, based again on PFRS 9, it is considered as financial asset at amortized cost. It is from written contracts of promise to pay because of the presence again of the promissory note. Promissory note meaning you are promising. Kaya nga written contracts of promise to pay. Minsan kahit nag-issue tayo ng promissory note, by the name itself, promise, nagpa-promise to pay, tapos katapos-tapusan, sorry. Diba? Sa bandang huli nagiging sorry, kaya nga promise, sorry. Promise, sorry note. Kailangan, wag paghiwalayan, promissory note. Kasi yung iba pinapaghiwalay, promise, sorry. My gosh. Wag ganun ha. Yun. So from written contracts of promise to pay to the presence of promissory note. Usually it is a secured type of receivable because commonly, say example for the loan may be associated with the issuance of promissory note also, and collaterals or security will be served to secure the loan. So for example, if an entity is borrowing fund from the bank, it could either serve its properties like the land or the building itself or the automobiles or other equipment for purposes of securing the loan. But aside from that, which is somewhat optional depending on the contract or the agreement of the lender and the borrower, usually it is secured because already of the presence of the promissory note. The presence of the promissory note will assure that the holder of the promissory note is guaranteed for the payment. Okay? Kahit anong mangyari, mabaliktad man ang mundo, gumuho man ang lupa, mag-tsunami man, basta hawak mo pa yung promissory note na yan, you can still tawag nun, you can still collect from the issuer. In contrast kasi with accounts receivable, we don't have security such as promissory note, aside from the billing. A billing statement can still be denied, but promissory note, hindi. Kasi nga, signed by the maker, notarized pa. Then with maturity date and maturity value, through the presence of a specific date, we can say that through presentation, we can determine if it is current or non-current. Having maturity date, we can consider computation of maturity value for that promissory note. So later, we'll have to solve problems that will involve computation of maturity value. Can still catch up to that point? Can you raise hand? Okay. So classifications of notes receivable. First, we have as to nature. Notes receivable could be interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. When we say interest-bearing, the promissory note bears interest at a stated rate based on the face amount or unpaid balance of the promissory note. Or it is non-interest bearing if it does not bear interest separate from the principal amount. The only difference of interest bearing and non-interest bearing is the separate computation of interest based on unpaid balance. However, both interest bearing and non-interest bearing should not be confused to, especially the non-interest bearing, should not be confused to have no interest at all. Because non-interest bearing and interest bearing, they both involve interest. So medyo isususpense ko ng konti si non-interest bearing because we have a separate discussion for non-interest bearing. Next, maturity. As to maturity, we have it short-term or long-term. We can consider it as short-term notes receivable if the maturity period is less than or equal to 1 year. Okay? Less than or equal to 1 year. Then it is long-term if the maturity period is more than or beyond 1 year. Actually, the maturity has something to do with the FS presentation also. Okay? So if we classify our notes receivable as to FS presentation, we may make reference of its maturity. Titignan na natin yung maturity kung within 1 year or lampas ng 1 year. Next, as to purpose, we can have it trade or non-trade. Trade if it is coming from selling, trading activities, or dealings with customers. And generally, dealings with customers. Or we can have it non-trade kapag other activities other than selling activities or other dealings with customers. Unless yung purpose ng notes receivable from customer is a lending activity. Okay, a lending activity. The next we have as to FS presentation. For FS presentation, we have it current if Based on its maturity, it could be collected or realized within 1 year, and non-current if it could be realized or collected beyond or more than 1 year based on the maturity. Yan. So kindly raise hand if up to that point nahabol pa ako. Actually, that is for purposes of discussion lang. But for the entire accounting of the notes receivable, we are more concerned of the FS presentation and FS presentation, maturity, and being either interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. Okay? Madali lang naman pag-classify as a trade or non-trade. Okay. So we move on with the accounting measurement. For accounting measurement, we measure it initially and subsequently. Short-term notes and long-term notes that are interest-bearing, they are generally initially measured at face value. As we have defined face value, it is the amount at the date of transaction appearing on the face of the promissory note. So that is face value if we're going to focus on notes receivable. But incorporating the concept of IFRS 15, face value should mean the transaction price. Okay, the transaction price. It's still the same actually. Transaction price or face value, they are just the same. Iba lang yung terminologies. But to be strict in IFRS 15, transaction price yung tawag dyan. So for this purpose, we'll just utilize the term face value. So when we say face value, it is the amount that appears on the face of the promissory note. Guys, don't be confused with the term I'm using, face of the promissory note. When I say face of the promissory note, I am referring to the one, the front portion that has the writings of the promissory note. Just like what I have presented earlier, sample of promissory note. Then for long-term notes receivable that are non-interest bearing, we initially measured it at present value. Present value, it is the discounted value of all cash flows associated with the notes. Yeah, so dini-discount natin. But regardless if it is short-term or long-term, interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing, we measure it subsequently at amortized cost. Depende na si amortized cost kung anong klaseng tawag nun, notes receivable yan. But nonetheless, amortized cost yung general application. Amortized cost, it is the initial measurement minus principal repayments, plus or minus an amortized difference between principal amount and maturity value, and less uncollectibility losses. Now to emphasize more of the amortized cost, for interest-bearing, for short-term notes and long-term notes that are interest-bearing, we can have it up to initial measurement minus principal repayments. Because such receivables, short-term and long-term interest-bearing, are usually my term is usually, not subject to amortization or discounting. However, if we're going to move forward with plus or minus an amortized difference between principal amount and maturity value, dyan papasok si non-interest bearing, which is common sa kanya, nasa separate discussion natin yan. So, isususpense ko muna dyan. Then less uncollectibility losses, just like all other receivables, notes receivable could be subject to bad debt or uncollectibility. So we can recognize losses. Under IFRS 9, what is the proper term for that losses? Credit losses. Okay, credit losses. In fact, when I discussed the overview of receivables, we associate receivable with the transaction coming from credit. Okay, credit. So that's why when we extend credit to someone or to another entity and there is a doubt for the collection, following accrual basis, we are already recognizing the credit losses. Okay? Credit losses. So yan. Yan yung ating subsequent measurement. Initial and subsequent measurement. Later, i-apply natin yan sa problem solving. So before I proceed with interest-bearing notes receivable, any question or kindly raise hand if nahabol yung accounting measurement. So to be straightforward, yun yung ating mga basic concepts for notes receivable. Summarized but straight to the point. Kasi yun lang naman yung importante for notes receivable. Okay? So moving on with interest-bearing notes receivable. Dito na yung mga specific applications. Okay. A notes receivable is said to be interest-bearing if, based on our definition earlier, if an interest is computed separate from the principal amount of the promissory note. Yung principal amount will be the basis of computing the interest by multiplying a stated rate. So kanina in our example, I have there mentioned of a stated rate, 10% yon. Okay? Naalala pa yung example kanina. So interest bearing if interest is computed based on the stated rate multiplied to the face amount or unpaid balance of the note. So the formula for the computation of the interest, it is actually the face amount or unpaid balance. Other term for that is the principal amount multiplied by the stated rate or the rate that is present on the face of the promissory note. Then the result will be the interest on promissory note. Now, if you can recall your basic accounting, yung portion or yung part na nag-adjusting entries kayo, can you still remember yung accrual method of adjusting? Can you raise hand? Di ba iniiyakan nyo? Iniiyakan nyo yung adjusting entries. Kakaiyak naman talaga yung adjusting entries. First of all, mahirap yung adjusting yung journal entries na account. Tapos pangalawa, mahirapan ka sa amount. Magkano yung i-represent sa adjusting entries. But nonetheless, kindly recall lang yung accrual method na yun. Because the interest that relates to interest-bearing promissory note is referred to accrued interest. You can only find accrued interest in interest-bearing receivables. Okay? Interest-bearing receivables. Example, the interest-bearing notes receivable. So there is another terminology that is used for interest when it comes to non-interest bearing. But for this purpose, focus lang muna tayo for accrued interest. So therefore, nasa mindset agad, if interest bearing, we have it accrued interest. For non-interest bearing, we have it, suspense lang muna. So susunod na yan. Okay. So in this example, balikan natin yung example sa promissory note. Yan. This promissory note is actually interest bearing. Reason, because of the presence of, nasa box, yung 10%. Should the promissory note does not provide interest rate on that phase, yung sinasabi ko guys na phase, yan. If that is the promissory note, then that is the phase of the promissory note. Yung may writings, of course. Okay? Baka kasi malito kayo eh. Baka sabihin yung technical masyado sinasabi ko sa phase. Yan yung phase ng promissory note. Okay? Kaya nga yung amount na sinasabi for initial measurement, phase amount or phase value, like for example dito yung 1 million, that is the phase value. Yan yung phase amount, yung 1 million. So this 10% will be multiplied to 1 mil, by 1 mil, sa 1 million to arrive with the interest for the promissory note. Again, yung interest is termed as accrued interest. Okay? If we are following the accrual process. Now, based on the agreement in the promissory note and of the issuer and the recipient, interest on promissory note could either be compounded or simple or non-compounded. I'm not sure if all of you encountered a math subject in fundamental in your senior high days. Yung math na merong kasi sa St. Paul, B-math. B-math ba 'yun? Yung may competition ng compounding of interest or baka sa college 'yun. Di lang ako sure. Are you familiar guys with the word compounding? Or hindi kayo familiar? So, sige, baka hindi kayo familiar. Yung morning kasi baka hindi rin sila familiar dun eh. Pero may nag-raise hand sa kanila. Hindi ko lang alam, hindi ko lang sure kung familiar sila. But based on the agreement in the promissory note, interest could either be compounded, simple, or non-compounded. What do we mean by compounded? An interest is said to be compounded if the resulting interest for the current period bears interest for purposes of computing the interest in the subsequent or succeeding period. So meaning the computed interest in the previous period will be added to the balance of the promissory note to compute the interest in the next and succeeding periods until the note is settled. There is a notion na for compounding na simple lang naman yung notion niya. Interest also bears interest. Kumbaga sa Tagalog, yung interest nanganganak ng interest. The basic concept of compounding ng interest bearing is that the principal amount of the promissory note, the one that bears interest. Kaya nga interest bearing. But if we're going to incorporate compounding, hindi lang yung principal ang magbe-bear ng interest. Also, the interest that were initially computed will also bear interest for purposes of computing the subsequent interest in the subsequent period interests. So later, i-apply natin yan sa problem. Pag sinabi naman nating simple, when we say simple or non-compounded interest, means that the computed interest is the same for all periods. So fixed, we are referring to fixed amount. So the interest computed today will still be the same interest computed in the next succeeding months or days or periods until the note is fully paid. So we can say if we're going to differentiate the interest under compounded or non-compounded, compounded every period hindi equal. Magkakaiba yung interest. But for simple or non-compounded, fixed. Okay? Fixed. In relation with notes receivable, we have to be familiar with the computation of maturity value. Maturity value is computed as the face amount of the promissory note, which is equal to the principal amount of such note plus the total interest. Okay? So the sum of the two is the maturity value. The total interest here that I'm referring to is the total. The total interest that had been accrued from the date of the rising of the notes receivable until the maturity date of that notes receivable. Meaning lahat ng interest hanggang bayaran mo ang value ng promissory note. Literally, lahat ng interest. So accounting for interest-bearing notes receivable depends if the settlement is either on lump sum basis or installment basis. When we say lump sum basis, we are referring to one-time payment. Or on the part of the recipient, one-time collection. Okay? One-time collection. For installment basis, we have it periodic. Yung lump sum basis, in Tagalog, isang bagsakan. Yung lump sum basis, utay-utay na pagbabayad. Ha? May periods na magbabayad ka. Okay? Specific periods, several periods. Or serial. Yung lump sum, one time. Or term. Yan yung ibig sabihin ng lump sum and installment. If the settlement is on lump sum basis, the procedure for the accounting is to make accrual of periodic interest and account for the settlement of the maturity value at maturity date. Necessary journal entries or summary journal entries for lump sum basis. To record the receipt of the promissory note with debit notes receivable and credit either sales revenue if it is coming from dealings with customers. We could credit properties depending on the type of properties, if it is land, building, machinery, equipment, or all other properties, if referring to incidental activities. So meaning not dealings with customers. Then other accounts, we can credit other specific accounts, particularly in lending of money. So when we lend money and the borrower issued promissory note, we can debit notes receivable and credit cash. Kasi nagpautang talaga tayo literally. So we credit cash. The debits and credits to loss on sale or gain on sale, depende yan kung yung scenario is a sale of properties, transaction related to properties, meaning incidental activities. Then to record the accrual of interest for the current period, we debit accrued interest or interest receivable and credit interest income. This is the portion that I've been telling you earlier when it comes to accrual method. Yung sa basic accounting nyo, yung adjusting entry, yung iniiyakan natin. Then to reverse the accrual of interest made from the prior period, which is optional, we debit interest income and credit accrued interest or interest receivable. Tama ba na optional yung reversing entries? And Risa, if tama ako na optional, based on the accounting process, baka niloloko ko lang kayo. So make sure that you are sure of your answers. Okay. O sige, balikan natin yung accounting process. Gusto nyo? Yung optional lang doon guys is, yung optional lang doon ay the worksheet. The worksheet process at saka yung reversing. All others are required. Even the closing, required yun. Closing entries. Okay. Then to record the settlement of the note, we debit cash, then credit notes receivable, then credit the total accrued interest. Okay? All the accrued interest from the beginning up to the maturity date. So let us have this problem. Lump sum basis. On January 1, 2020, Will's company sold its second-hand machine with original acquisition cost of $600,000 and accumulated depreciation of $120,000. The company received 3-year promissory note that bears interest at 12% on unpaid balance payable every December 31. The face value of the promissory note, 540,000 and will mature in December 31, 2020. Then yung requirements sa atin is, are journal entries from 2020 to 2022. Assuming daw annual interest is compounded or simple or non-compounded. So important points for the problem. Book value of the second-hand machine is the difference of 600,000 and 120,000. Then the promissory note is said to be interest-bearing because of the clue or the phrase that bears interest or bears interest. So 12% is the stated rate. And then it is on a lump sum basis because it matures on December 31, 2022. Transaction date is January 2020. So on unpaid balance payable every December 31, if we're going to make reference on the discussion of the overview, interest receivable are always current. Kasi yearly. Usually annual yung pag-collect sa kanya. So we proceed with the solution. So to record the receipt of the promissory note, we debit notes receivable 540,000, then debit accumulated depreciation 120,000. We debit accumulated depreciation because we are eliminating the related account of the machine sold or of the asset sold. Depreciable naman si machine eh. Yan. Then we credit gain on sale. There is a gain on sale because the amount of promissory note of 540,000 is greater than the book value of the second-hand machine, which is the difference of 600,000 and 120. How much is that? Sige nga, calculator warriors, magkano yung book value? Okay. That is correct. 480,000. So I hope the others were able to get 480,000. So 540 minus 480, we have it 60. So December 31, 2020, to record the accrual of interest for the current period, we debit accrued interest or interest receivable, then credit interest income. Since it is the first year of computation, yung 2020 is the first year of computation of the interest, yung mangyayari, wala pa tayong previous interest na i-associate with the 540 principal amount, 540,000 principal amount. That's why our computation is 540,000 plus 0, then times 12%. So therefore, our initial interest is 64,800. We can appreciate more the compounding when we proceed with December 2021 because there is already a substantial period of time na there is already a previous interest computed. So for December 2021, debit accrued interest and credit interest income, the computation is that the 540,000 plus 64,800 then times 12%. That should be 72,576. For further explanation, how did we arrive 72,576? If we're going to individually compute the interest, 540,000 times 0.12, that should equal to 64,800. Then compute interest by multiplying 12% with 64,800. That should be 7,776. Then plus 64,800, that should equate to 72,576. Were you able to catch up? Kindly raise hand. Okay. So the same process that we're going to apply for December 2022. So how do we compute our interest income before the final settlement? So the computation would be the 540,000 plus the 64,800 of 2020, then 72,576 of 2021. Total should be 677,376. Multiplied by 12%, that should equate to 81,285.12. We can drop 0.12. Okay, we can drop it. Or if you want other explanation, then we can say 540,000 times 12%, 64,800. 64,800 of 2020 multiplied by 12%, that would be 7,776. Then the 72,576 of 2021 times 12%, that should be 8,709.12. Then we can drop 0.12. That should still equate to 81,285. So yan yung notion na sinasabing interest bears interest for compounding. As simple as that. Then to record the settlement of the note, we debit cash for the entire amount of maturity value. So the principal of 540,000 plus the total interest. The total interest is simply computed as the 64,800 of 2020, 72,576 of 2021, and 81,285 of 2022. That should total 218,661. Then plus 540,000, debit to cash is 758,661. Were you able to catch up? Kindly raise hand. Okay. Guys, compounded pa lang yan. Lump sum basis. Wala pa tayo sa installment. Ayan ha. So if we're going to explain naman si simple or compounded, almost the same lang yung computation, yung concept sa recording, nagkakaiba lang sa amount ng accrual. Sa first year, sa 2020, the same journal entries and the same amounts. Kung papansin nyo, walang pinagbago. Ganun pa rin. So yung accrual of interest is still at 64,800 as of 2020. Pero sa simple or non-compounded, the same 64,800 ang makikita sa journal entries ng accrual sa 2021 and 2022. Reason, we are not compounding the interest. So therefore, fixed interest. So to record the settlement of the promissory note as of December 31, 2022, we debit cash for the maturity value. Credit notes receivable 540,000 pa rin, but the accrued interest is the total of the accrued interest from 2020 to 2022. That should be 64,800 plus 64,800 plus 64,800. But di ko na lang 64 times 3. Yan. 194,400 plus 540 That should be 734,400. Kinukumpit ko guys, baka kasi mali yung nalagay ko dyan. So 734,400. I assume yan yung nakuha yung amount. So simple lang. Kaya nga simple eh. Redundant na ako masyado. Simple lang si simple. Oh my gosh. Ay, nako. So we're able to catch up the difference ng simple at saka compounded. Madali lang yan, guys. Yan. Uy. Okay. So if I'm going to ask you, if you lend money to someone, what will you choose? Compounded interest or simple interest? What do you think? Okay, sige. Bigyan ko kayo ng reference. Kapag compounded, yung settlement natin is debited to cash of 758,661. Good for 3 years na yan. But for simple, only 734,400. Question, compounded or simple? Sabi ni Laura Bell, depende po iya kabutangan pero better it compounded. Depende daw sa kalagayan pero better ang compounded. Ayan, sabi din ng iba, compounded. So ganun din. Sa morning, ganun din yung kanila. Compounded. Ano ba? Ano ba naman to, Miss Velasco? Compounded, pero hit mga 5-6, mostly simple ginagamit. Yeah. If you use compounded, tama yan, mas masahol ka pa sa 5-6. Mas masahol ka pa sa 5-6. Mas masahol ka pa sa Bombay. Ayun. Sabi ni Sandra, compounded. Kay bagada ako it's sobra. Wow. Compounded daw kasi malaki yung sobra. Kasi to think 3 years, meron na silang difference yung difference in amount that should be magkano yun? 758,661 minus 734,400. May difference na 24,000 plus. Saan ka pa ng 24,000 plus na difference? How much more if yung compounding natin last 5 years? 'Di ba? Kung 5 years yung compounding, naku mas malaki yung difference, significant yung difference niya. Pero tubong lugaw na yan, sir. Well, we cannot avoid the fact na magiging tubong lugaw talaga siya because in practice, ganyan naman talaga, compounding of interest. Although, of course, it is favorable to the one who lend money, but the question is it the preferred one for the one who borrowed? Because if you're the one who borrowed, yung gusto mo, simple interest lang. Or minsan nga, walang interest. Kung magkano lang yung inutang mo, if nang ibabalik. Di ba? So that should be depending on the situation. Pero kung si lender ka, pwede. Pwede compounded. Pero kung ikaw si borrower, no interest at all. Ay, nako kayo talaga. So ibig sabihin, just like with the morning, gusto nyo rin yumaman agad. Ang mga business-minded nyo talaga, grabe kayo. Sige. So yan ha, lump sum basis. Proceed naman tayo sa installment basis. Our procedure with installment basis, first, there's collection of periodic installment. Then afterwards, the simultaneous recording of collection for the periodic interest. Yan lang. So summary journal entries, ganun pa rin yung recording ng receipt. Magdedepende pa rin if coming from dealings with customers or incidental activities or other accounts using, sabi na natin nag-lend tayo ng money. Okay? Then to record the receipt of periodic interest, we can debit cash and credit interest income. Usually, walang accrual, cut-off na yung accrual process. Although in proper accounting, may accrual pa rin yan. But because collection and interest is simultaneously collected, yung ginagawa ng iba is to cut the accrual process. Okay? Pero hindi ko sinasabihan na follow the process of cutting accrual process. Hindi ganun. Then number 3, to record the periodic settlement of the note, we debit cash and credit notes receivable. Or we can combine the two entries. Debit to cash for the total of collection ng principal and the interest. Then we credit notes receivable and credit interest income. Example, installment basis with equal payments. On January 1, 2020, Wills Company sold again second-hand machine. Acquisition cost, 600,000. Accumulated depreciation, 120,000. 3-year promissory note pa rin. Interest bearing of 12%. Then the note is payable equal payments of 180,000 for 3 years starting December 31, 2020 until fully paid. Meaning, instead of paying entire amount of 540,000 on a lump sum basis sa 2022, just like what we have in the previous problem, yung ginawa daw dito installment basis is hinati sa tatlo yung 540,000. Equal amounts of 180,000. The same pa rin yung requirements, journal entries from 2020 to 2022. So for equal payments, yan. To record the receipt of the note, we debit notes receivable, 180,000 times 3. Kasi lalahatin natin sa journal entry. That would be 540,000. Debit agad accumulated depreciation, credit ng machine, then credit gain on sale. Yan. The same pa rin actually yung amounts. Yung binago ko lang naman is the assumption of the installment basis. Then to record that periodic collection yung dapat yan. Periodic collection of principal and interest. You could either separate the collection of principal, then the collection of interest, or just like that, you could have it compounded na lang. The same pa rin naman yung effect yan sa entries. So debit ng cash, then credit notes receivable, 180,000. Interest income, 64,800. 64,800, bakit na yung 64,800? Balikan natin yung problem. The problem, sabi dyan, bears interest of 12% on unpaid balance of the note. So kung unpaid balance yung maging reference natin for the computation of the interest, before the receipt of 180,000, yung pinaka-unpaid balance pa natin is 540,000. That's why first interest computation is on the basis of 540,000. Okay, so 540,000 times 12%, 64,800. Plus 180,000 debit sa cash, 244,800. Okay, we're able to get it. Kindly raise hand. Okay. Then, to record the periodic collection of principal and interest sa 2021, still the same, debit ng cash, credit ng notes receivable, and credit interest income. But this time, the interest income will be computed on the unpaid balance after now considering the first principal payment sa 2020. Because in fact, before tayo mag-collect ng another 180, yung unpaid balance natin is 360,000. So 360,000 times 12%, that would be 43,200. Credit sa notes receivable still of 180 plus 180,000. That should be a debit to cash of 223,200. Okay? Naging equal payments siya guys kasi yung credit natin sa notes receivable equal amount so 180. Then for December 2022, the last installment of 180,000 multiplied by 12%, that would be 21,600 plus 180,000, that should be a debit to cash of 201,600. Or kung gusto nyo, pahirapan sarili natin, 540 minus 180 ng 2020, another 180 ng 2021. Unpaid balance, 180. Okay? Kindly raise hand. Kung nahabol. Yan. Okay. So if we have equal payments, we also have unequal payments. So pwede ba yun? Unequal payments? Well, it depends on the agreement. Pwede namang unequal payments. When we say unequal payments, minsan yung iba may down payment tapos yung remaining balance equal payments. Or pwede naman may down payment tapos yung rest of the balance unequal payments din. Pwede na yan. Yung home credit, usually equal payments yon, yung home credit. Hehehe. Wala lang. O hindi ako nag-advertise ng home credit ha, wala kayo. Pangarap ko kasi na hindi mag-home credit. Yung diretso ako magsa-swipe. Rico, sir. Joke la. Sige, proceed tayo with unequal payments. For unequal payments, the same pa rin yung format ng problem. Nagkaiba lang sa pagbayad in installment basis. Kasi yung 540,000, instead of equal payments of 180,000, ginawa nating 220 sa 2020, 180 sa 2021, and 140 sa 2022. Yun pa rin yung requirements. Journal entries sa 2020 to 2022. 12% pa rin ang interest bearing pa rin. Okay. So to record the receipt of the note, debit ng notes receivable, 220,000 plus 180,000 plus 140,000, 540,000 pa rin yan. Debit ng cumulative depreciation, ganun pa rin. Machine, ganun pa rin. Gain on sale, ganun pa rin. Then to record the periodic collection, bakit pa nagkulang dito ng IC? Huh? So to record the periodic collection of principal and interest, yung credit natin sa notes receivable, magfa-follow lang tayo dito sa unequal payments. So 220,000. Pairing interest income, miraculously, 64,800 pa rin. Bakit 64,800? Unequal payments na nga, sir. Ang kulit mo. Okay. Unequal payments yung assumption, but still, before receiving the first installment payment of 220, the unpaid balance is still 540,000. Kaya 64,800 pa rin yan. Okay? Miraculously. What miraculously? Pwede namang coincidental. Okay? Then, notes receivable credited to 220. Interest income, 64,800. Itotal lang yan. Yung debit natin sa cash is 284,800. Then, sa 2021, for 2021, to record the periodic collection of principal and interest, yung i-credit natin sa note receivable this time is 180. Base dito. And 180. Interest income is on the basis of unpaid balance. So dito, we're going to consider now with the unpaid, the first payment ng 2020. So 540 minus 220, Unpaid balance is 320. 320 ba? Yeah, 320. Ulit. Yeah, 320. Times 12%, that is 38,400. 38,400 plus 180,000, total is 218,400. Yun yung debit natin sa cash. Then sa December 2022, remaining unpaid balance of 140,000 multiplied by 12%, that should be 16,800. Then plus 140,000, debit to cash is 156,800. Or if you want, kung gusto nyo pahirapan sarili nyo, kayo lang, 540,000 minus 220 minus 180. 140,000 pa rin yan. Okay? Can you raise hand? Yan. Okay. So actually, that ends the basic application of lump sum basis, installment basis, tsaka ng accrual of interest, at tsaka ng compounding and uncompounding, or simple interest. Meron akong bonus na problems. Bonus sample problems. Those that involve unrealistic interest rate. I'll be your crying shoulder. Joke lang. I'll be sharing with you sample problems involving unrealistic interest rate kasi nga nung nagre-review ako, na-encounter ko yung unrealistic interest rate sa promissory note. Namali ako ng pag-solve sa isang problem kasi nga the promissory note is really interest bearing, but because yung consideration daw sa interest is unrealistic interest. When we say unrealistic interest, guys, yung stated interest rate is yung difference ng stated interest sa market interest rate is far significant. Okay? Yung difference nila, significant masyado. Okay? Kaya ganon. So yan. For lump sum basis with unrealistic interest rate, in addition to accrual of periodic interest and settlement of maturity value at maturity date, another consideration is to prepare amortization schedule. Earlier, I emphasized that generally, long-term interest-bearing notes or receivables are not subject to discounting or to amortization. But because of the concept of unrealistic interest rate, some other books also discuss with unrealistic interest rate, especially in the auditing books. Okay? So we're going to prepare amortization schedule. So let us apply this concept. Lump sum basis with unrealistic interest rate. So almost the same structure kanina sa lump sum basis. May additional paragraph lang tayo sa baba. Yung interest natin, yung interest rate is 7%. Kanina, nasa 12%. Yung stated interest. This time, 7%. However, last paragraph, the effective rate for the same note in the market is at 12%. And the present value factor for principal is 0.71 and for total interest is 2.40. Requirements natin, journal entries from 2020 to 2022. Now, if you encounter the same problem, the same type of problem or structure ng problem, wag agad magpadalos-dalos sa interest bearing. Question is, paano nangyayari nagkakaroon ng unrealistic interest rate? In practice, yung paggawa ng promissory note, the consideration for the interest rate usually based on the market level. So, the parties involved should agree with a rate, specific rate. Now, nagiging basis usually is yung market interest rate, which is yung effective rate. Yung tawag dyan, effective rate. However, if they agree to a different interest rate, dyan papasok si unrealistic interest rate. It doesn't mean na hindi pwede. Pwede naman. Pwede naman yan. Yun nga lang, as to the accounting procedure for the accounting of the promissory note, nagkakaiba na tayo for that purpose. So how do we solve? The necessary solution are as follows. For the principal amount, we compute the present value, 540,000 times 0.71. Then present value of the interest, 540,000 times 7% times 2.40. So the total present value is 474,120. Now, the concept with unrealistic interest dito na we are incorporating already the present value or the discounting and the preparation of the amortization schedule is in preparation of our discussion sa non-interest bearing. Okay? Non-interest bearing. O sige. Follow lang ako. Follow lang. Much better if you have calculators with you. So yan. Present value of the promissory notes is 474,120. Then the difference of the face value and present value of the notes receivable, 540,000 and 474,120 is treated as discount on notes receivable. Discount on notes receivable. 65,880. Then the difference of the present value, this time because we have applied present value to compute for the gain or loss on sale, we have to compare instead of the face value, we use the present value of the notes receivable. Book value of the machine is 480. So mas mataas yung book value kaysa sa present value of the notes. The difference is considered as a loss on sale. 5,880. Now, let's analyze the amortization schedule. Ito yung amortization schedule natin. So yung interest receivable na 37,800, consistent yan from 2020 to 2022. How did we arrive with 37,800? Ito yan, 540,000 times 7%. 540,000 times 7%, 37,800. Then sa discount column, nandito yung 65,880. Then yung carrying amount nasa January 1 row, yung 474,120. Now the question is, how did we arrive with the interest income and amortization of discount? So yan. So let us start. If you have calculators with you, much better para makafollow. Let us start with 474,120. So 474,120 multiplied by 12%. Multiplied by 12%. That should be 56,894.4. Okay? 56,894.4. We can drop the 0.4. Okay, we can drop the 0.4. Minus 37,800. Minus 37,800. Lalabas si 19,094. Yan yung ating amortization of discount. So amortization of discount decreases the amount of discount. So 19,094 ibawas sa 65,880. Ibawas sa 65,880, that should be 46,786. Okay, I hope you are following. Then, go back with the amortization, 19,094. Add 19,094 sa 474,120 to arrive the carrying amount of 493,214. Now, there is a question kanina sa morning. Sir, why is it that the amortization of discount is added? Okay, why? Sige, tanong ko, sagot ko. Take note that our end goal is to collect or realize 540,000. Analyzing our amortization schedule, we cannot arrive 540,000 kung ibabawas si discount amortization. So yung gagawin natin, for purposes of analyzing amortization schedule, discount will be added until such time that we can complete 540,000 at the end of 2022. So kung discount, i-add natin until makuha ng 540,000. Sir, you mean there are other transactions or there are other amortization other than amortization of discount? Yes. Merong ibang amortization na yung effect, instead of addition, deduction. Pero suspense lang muna kasi nasa investment pa yan. Nasa topic pa ng investment. Malayo pa tayo, guys. Malayo pa. So sige, proceed tayo. Ay, proceed lang pala. So 493,214, multiply ka ng 12%. Lalabas ang 59,185.68. We can round it off to 186. Kaya meron tayong 59 186. Diyan. So bawas ulit tayo ng 37,800. We have 21,238. Ano? 21,386 pala. So 38. Babaliktad na. So 21,386. 21,386. Then 21,386 ibawas sa 46,786. Lalabas si 25,400. Then balik ka sa discount amortization na 21,386. I-add dito sa 493,214. Result is 514,600. From 514,600, I advise to stop the process. Kasi if we continue 514,600 times 12%, hindi natin makukuha si 63,200 sa interest income na column. So na yung gagawin natin? To arrive exactly 540,000, we need to adjust the last figures na lang. Okay? Advisably adjust the last figures. Kasi we cannot avoid rounding off of figures because of the discounting na ginawa natin. In fact, yung 0.71 and 2.40 are rounded off figures. Okay? So initially pa lang computation rounded off na. So expect na hindi magto-total lahat to arrive 540 in continuous basis. So gagawin natin, stop tayo sa 2021, then adjust na lang the figures on 2022. So ilagay natin 540,000 sa last column ng carrying value. Okay? Wait lang guys ha, for a while. Okay, balik tayo. So get the difference of 540,000 and 514,600. We can arrive the amortization of discount na 25,400. So 25,400 is i-zero out natin si discount column. Okay, is-zero out natin. Then to arrive with our interest income, simply add 25,400 with 37,800. That should be 63,200. Were you able to catch up, guys? Be honest. Can raise hand. I do understand sa iba kung hindi nakaka-catch up. Kasi unusual naman talaga for interest-bearing na magdi-discount tayo. Unusual. But because of unrealistic interest siya, assumption is unrealistic interest, we have to subject it for amortization. Sige. Until 4:30 pa naman tayo. So yan, necessary journal entries, lump sum basis with unrealistic interest. So to record the receipt of the note, debit notes receivable, 540,000. Debit ng accumulated depreciation, 120,000. Debit ng loss on sale, 5,880. Debit, credit ng machine, 600,000. At discount on notes receivable, 65,880. Yan. Then to record the accrual of interest and discount amortization, yung gagawin natin is to follow lang the amounts in the amortization schedule. What are we going to debit with accrued interest or interest receivable is fixed amount of 37,800. As you can see sa 2020, 2021, and 2022, may debit tayo na 37,800 sa accrued interest. So ito yan siya sa interest receivable column. Then yung credit natin sa interest income based ulit dito sa amortization schedule. So 56,894 nasa 2020 siya. 59,186 nasa 2021 at saka yung 63,200 nasa 2022. Next, take note magkaiba yung debits and credits. So ano yung balancing figure natin? Yung balancing figure natin is yung nasa amortization column. Yung 19,094 nasa 2020. Yan. Yung 21,386 nasa 2021. At saka yung 25,400 nasa 2022. Now to record the final settlement, yung gagawin lang natin, total all debits sa accrued interest. So 37,800 times 3, that should be 113,400. Yan yung i-credit natin sa accrued interest. Then, credit notes receivable for the full amount of 540,000. Total, yung dalawa is debit sa cash. Maturity value of 653,400. Okay, 653,400. So therefore, aside from 540,000, Yung marireceive natin is also the interest. Take note na-realize natin yung 540,000 dito. Ito yan, yung last column. Then, i-journalize din si interest receivable. So, total nito plus ito na 540,000, kaya meron tayong 653,400. Kindly raise hand if nagets yun. Don't worry guys, we still have more. This time nasa installment basis naman tayo. For installment basis, addition to the collection of periodic interest and installments, we have preparation again of amortization schedule. So for unrealistic interest rate, first we have equal payments. For equal payments guys, in preparation na rin sa notes receivable na non-interest bearing, if it is equal payments, each, ano ba yan? Umipiyok na ako. Each installment payment will be multiplied with the specific present value factor. Kaya present ko dyan sa 2020, 0.8929, 2021, 0.7972, tsaka 2022, 0.7118. So, mabait pa ako kasi binigay ko pa yung present value factor. Pero kung some other books, hindi yan ibibigay guys. Magkukompute talaga kayo. Okay? Don't worry, I will teach you how to compute present value factor when we proceed na sa non-interest bearing. Kasi nandun yung discussion ko. Okay, how do we solve this one? Take note ha, equal payments. So principal, take note yung i-discount natin the same with lump sum basis. Yung diniscount natin principal and interest. So dito, principal and interest din. So principal natin hinatay sa tatlong 180. So yung interest natin, i-compute natin based on the unpaid balance. Before realizing the first 180, unpaid balance natin is 540. That's why yung interest natin times 7% is 37,800. Ito yan. Ano ba yan? Sorry. Sana yun? Yan. Ito yan. Next is 25,200. 25,200 is computed as 540,000 minus the first payment of 180. So that should be 25,200. Okay? So 540 minus 180, that should be 360 times 7% is 25,200. Then the last installment of 180,000 times 0.07, 12,600 yung result. Yung total ng principal and interest for each period, yung 217,800 up to 192,600, ito yung magiging debit natin mamaya sa cash. Take note yan yung magiging debit natin sa cash for each period. Then each cash flow, yung tawag po dito sa total column na to is cash flow per period. So multiply by the present value factors. So individually yan. Total present value factor natin is 495,152. So versus the face value of the notes of 540,000, our discount is 44,848. Then the difference of the present value of the notes and the book value of the machine is again on sale this time. Kasi yung present value mas mataas kaysa sa 480 na book value. So gain on sale of 15,152. So sige, yung magiging amortization natin medyo magiging iba siya kasi ineliminate ko dito yung column ng discount. Okay? Basta as long as meron tayong amortization column, we can say that the discount na 44848 will still be amortized. May eliminate pa rin yan. So yung interest natin kanina na 37,800 down to 12,600, yan yung ilalagay natin dito sa interest receivable column. Okay? Then yung principal, of course, dito yan sa principal payments column. Then yung 495,152 ilagay dito sa carrying value column. So sige, kindly follow lang. 495,152 times 12% ulit. We can arrive with 59,418.24. Okay? 59,418.24, we can drop 0.24. So pwede sabihin natin 59,418 lang. Bawas ka ng 37,800. Lalabas ang discount amortization na 21,618. Okay? 618. Now, 21,618 idagdag or i-add sa 495,152. Magkano yung lalabas, guys? Calculator warriors. Compute. Magkano yan? 495,152 plus 21,618. Okay. 516,770. Natatanungin niyo ako, sir, nasaan yung 516,770 dyan? Oops, hindi pa tayo tapos sa process. So after adding 21,618, yung 516,770, bawasan po natin ng 180,000. Kasi nga ulit, installment basis. So bawasan ng 180,000. Kindly raise hand if nakuha si 336,770. Okay, nakuha naman pala. So that's good. Then from 336,770, proceed ka ulit, multiply by 12%. We can come up with 40,412.4. We can drop 0.4. Sabihin na lang natin 40,412. Ayan. Sige, 40,412, bawas ka ng 25,200. Lalabas ang 15,212 na amortization. Okay. So 15,212 idagdag sa 336,770. Magkano lalabas? Okay, correct. 351,982. Ngayon, nasa ng 351,982 na yan. Di pa ulit tapos. Bawas again ng 180,000. Lalabas si 171,982. Okay? Now, we stop the process. Okay, stop the process kasi we need to zero it out. So para maging zero out yan, magkano ang magiging amortization natin na idadagdag sa 171,982 para maging zero out siya kung bawasan ng 180,000. So to do that, adjust ulit tayo ng figures. So 171,982 minus ka ng principal payment na 180. Supposed to be yung ating amortization is 8,018. 8,018. 8,018. So I hope nakuha sa 8,018. Since present na si amortization, na-compute na natin, i-add natin si amortization doon sa interest receivable para makuha si interest income. Yung ginagawa natin guys, nag-a-adjust tayo, we know work back natin yung ibang figures. Because if we're going to follow 171,982 times 12%, lalabas is 2673.84. Sobra na siya. Magiging sobra na siya kasi 2618 lang yung kailangan natin. Diba? Magiging sobra na siya. Yung maging carrying value column natin, magiging negative yan. But we need to zero it out. Literally, zero it out. So yan. Kailangan 20,618 yung interest income. Amortization is 8,018. Don't worry, we'll still have this the same analysis pagdating natin sa non-interest bearing. So proceed tayo sa journal entries. So notes receivable, 180,000 times 3, 540 pa rin yan. Credit ng machine, 600,000. Discount, nasa 44,848. Gain on sale, nasa 15,152. Accumulated depreciation, nasa 120. Then to record the periodic collection, wala na namang IC dito. Ano ba yan? Periodic collection of principal and interest and also the discount amortization. So saan yan? Yung 217,800, eto yan. Kana, sawang kano. Yan. Then credit tayo ng notes receivable, 180,000. Kasi, eto yan. Equal payments eh. Credit tayo ng interest income based on amortization schedule. Ito yan, 59,418. Then debit naman tayo ng discount on notes receivable, 21,618. Ito yan. Ay, sorry. Ito yan. Okay. Then sa 2021, debit tayo ng cash na 205,200. Ito yan. Discount on notes receivable, 15,212. Ito yan. Then credit notes receivable, still 180. And interest income, 44,112. Ito yan. 40,412. Then last, debit ng cash, 192,600. Ito yan. Then debit ng discount, 8,018. Ito yan. Then credit notes receivable 180,000 and credit interest income of 20,618. Ito yan. Okay? Last. Unequal payments naman. O diba, sinagad-sagad ko lahat ng assumptions. Diba? Para wala kayong masabi. Binigay ko lahat. Char lang. Proceed tayo ng unequal payments. Ganun pa rin yung process. Nagkaiba lang kasi unequal payments. Okay? 7% pa rin interest, pero yung effective rate is 12%. So how do we solve? So principal natin will follow the unequal payments, 220, 180, and 140,000. Interest, paano yung compute sa interest? Prior to the first installment payment na 220, 540 pa rin ho yung ating unpaid balance. So 540 times 0.07, nandyan pa rin si 37,800. Then after considering 220, magiging unpaid balance natin is 320,000. That is 540 minus 220. Then multiplied by 7%, 22,400. 22,400. Then last, the remaining unpaid balance of 140,000 times 7%, that is 9,800. Then i-total natin each, 257,800 down to 149,800. Yun yung magiging debits natin later on sa cash. Then multiply with the respective PVFs or present value factors. Total present value is 498,171. Then versus the 540,000 face value, discount is 41,829. Then the difference of the present value of the notes and book value of the machine is gain on sale of 18,171. Gain kasi mas mataas or mas malaki si present value of the notes kaysa sa book value ng machine. So ganun pa rin. Interest ilagay dito sa interest receivable. Yan. Then principal na unequal payments ilagay ulit dito. Then 498,171 ilagay ulit dito sa carrying value column. So sige, follow ulit para maano kayo, mahasa. 498,171 times ng 12% lalabas si 59,780.52. We can drop 0.52 and round it off to 781. Then minus tayo ng 37,800, lalabas si 21,981. Si 21,981, i-add natin sa 498,171. Magkano yung lalabas dyan, guys? Okay. Calculator yours. Proceed. Compute. Okay. Correct. 520,152. So, asan dyan si 520,152? E di bawasan natin ng 220,000, lalabas si 300,152. Okay? From 300,152, multiply ka ulit ng 12%, lalabas si 36,018.24. We can drop 0.24. Then from 36,018, bawas ka ng 22,400. Lalabas si 13,618. 13,618, i-add natin sa 300,152. Magkano lalabas? All right, that's correct. 313,770. Pero wala siya sa amortization schedule. So minus tayo ng 180,000, lalabas si 133,770. Then the same thing, cut the process. Magkano yung supposed amortization na i-add natin sa 133,770 para ma-zero out siya pag minusan natin ng 140,000 plus principal payment. So, get the difference. 133,770 minus 140,000. So, that would be 6,230. Then, 6,230 plus ka ng 9,800. Kaya meron tayong 16,030. Okay? So proceed sa solution, sa journal entries. Debit natin na notes receivable, 220 plus 180 plus 140,000, still at 540,000. Accumulated depreciation, 120. Machine credited at 600,000. Discount is on 41,829 and gain on sale is on 18,171. Then to record the periodic collection of principal and interest at saka yung discount amortization, debit ng cash etong 257,800. Ayan. Then discount on notes receivable 21,981. Ito yan sa amortization. Credit notes receivable yung 220. Ito yan. Then interest income of 59,781. Ito yan. Then sa 2021, debit ng cash 202,400. Ito yan. Debit ng discount on notes receivable na 13,618. Ito yan. And credit naman tayo ng notes receivable 180,000 based sa unequal payments. Ito yan. Ito. Then credit interest income of 36,018. Ito yan. Then last, debit tayo ng cash. Sa 2022, debit ng cash 149,800. Ito yan. Debit ng notes, discount on notes receivable 6,230. Credit ng notes receivable 140,000. Then credit interest income of 16,030. Yan. So, kung babalikan natin yung amortization schedule, kung i-multiply natin si 133,770 ng 12%, magiging 16,052. So, mas mataas kaysa kay 16,030. So, magiging negative yan kung i-consider natin yung process pa. So, yun. Adjust na lang tayo. So, yan. I hope na gets ng lahat. So, that's it. We're done with part 1.